A new measure to protect SMS users from scammers. In Yuen-Long, a man stabbed to death after a scuffle with two women inside a taxi. And a UN Security Council vote on Gaza delayed as diplomats try to resolve U.S. concerns over wording. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Starting next Thursday, 23 telecommunications services providers will send SMS messages to subscribers with a prefix hash or pound. The measure comes after the Office of the Communications Authority announced that an SMS sender registration scheme will be implemented in the telecommunications sector. Mimo Singai reports.
It is common to receive scam calls and messages on a daily basis nowadays. While scammers change their tactics constantly, texts sent by fake telecommunication services providers remain one of the commonly used tricks. To combat such scammers, the Office of the Communications Authority, or OFCA, announced the SMS sender registration scheme today. The scheme will first be implemented in the telecom sector. It would then be expanded to the banking sector in the first quarter of next year. Under the scheme, all registered senders will use registered SMS sender IDs with the prefix hash to deliver SMS messages to subscribers of mobile services. SMS messages with sender IDs containing a hash but not from the registered senders will be blocked by the telecommunication services providers. Currently, 23 telecom providers said they will join the scheme, such as SmarTone, China Mobile, and HKT. Each registered telecom provider has several hash sender IDs. For instance, SmarTone has 3 registered sender IDs, hash SmarTone, hash SMC Plus, and hash Pay by ST Bill. However, a hash will not appear in SMS messages, which require users to reply to the senders via phone numbers. Moons 9, TVB News.
A man was stabbed and died in Yuen-Long after a scuffle involving two women in a taxi. Police arrested 2 female suspects in Tin Shui Wai. Large amounts of blood covered the interior of the vehicle and parts of the road. Authorities said the incident occurred at around 4 in the morning when a man and 2 women physically attacked each other after they boarded a taxi near Shui Pin Wai Estate. The 2 women then got off the vehicle and boarded another taxi. The man suffered stab wounds. The driver of the first taxi reported the assault to the police. The 48-year-old man had wounds to the chest and was sent to hospital where he died. The 2 female suspects, aged 36 and 37, fled to Tin Ching Estate in Tin Shui Wai, where they were arrested by police. Sources said the fight was over a relationship dispute. 1 man died and 6 others were injured in a fire that broke out at Tung Tao Estate apartment in Wong Tai Sin this morning. Authorities say fire accelerants were found in the apartment and have classified the case as arson and wounding. The incident happened at around 7 a.m. at Kwai Tung House. This is the apartment where the fire broke out. About 30 residents were evacuated from the building. It took about 30 minutes for firemen to put out the blaze. Speaking to the press, Acting Chief Inspector Kwok Chung-hae said the incident may have been the result of a family dispute. Police said a family of 4 was living in the unit. Early this morning, a man was suspected to have injured his 49-year-old wife and 16-year-old daughter with a knife. The 2 victims and a younger daughter then escaped to their neighbor's home before a fire broke out. Sources said the charred body of a man was found in the apartment, believed to be that of the father. According to Chinese media in Gansu province, where a magnitude 6.2 earthquake hit on Monday night, rescue operations ended yesterday afternoon. Focus has now shifted to treating the wounded and resettling the residents. People who survived the country's worst earthquake in 9 years milled around relief tents in Gansu province today. after spending the night in freezing temperatures. At least 131 people died and nearly 1,000 others were injured. Most of the casualties were in Gansu and the rest in the neighboring province of Qinghai. In Minhe County in Qinghai, the quake triggered moving sand into 2 villages, with mudslides burying and washing away houses. About 20 people are believed to have been buried, and authorities are using heavy machinery for rescue operations. Overseas, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh today arrived in Cairo for talks with Egyptian officials on the war in Israel. This as dozens of Palestinians were killed in the latest salve of Israeli airstrikes across various towns in Gaza. The UN is trying to push a new Security Council resolution that would allow more aid into Gaza, as its author, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States quibbled on the wording. Gaza officials say more than 19,000 people have been killed since October 7th, when Palestinian group Hamas raided Israel. Around 1,200 people in Israel were killed in that incursion, while around 240 hostages were taken into Gaza. Nazvi Karim with more.
More hostages pleading to be saved. This time, those held by the Al-Quds Brigade, the armed wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. 79-year-old Gadi Moses and 47-year-old Ilad Katzir. "We are dying every moment. We are in an unbearable situation," said Moses. The previous day, Hamas released a video of 3 elderly men pleading with Israel, "Don't let us grow old here." Diplomatic efforts to release some 130 hostages still being held by the Palestinian groups are lagging. Talks have been held in Poland between mediator Qatar and the intelligence chiefs of the United States and Israel. However, sources tell Reuters that while progress is positive, there is no imminent truce that would allow for the release of hostages. Israeli President Isaac Herzog said his government is ready for another humanitarian pause in fighting. Hamas senior leader Bassem Naim said no negotiations are possible until Israel ends its bombardment of Gaza. In late November, a 7-day truce saw more than 100 hostages released, while over 200 Palestinians were freed from Israeli jails. The United Nations' latest draft resolution is being bogged down by its wording, as its author, the UAE, tries to push it through the Security Council, which would make it legally binding. The UAE and US, which last week vetoed a resolution that would have called for a humanitarian ceasefire, are trying to find a compromise. The US is unhappy with calls for a cessation of hostilities. Washington says any halt to the fighting would benefit Hamas. The US is also wary of an item in the proposal that asks the UN to establish a monitoring mechanism for aid. Meanwhile, the death toll in Gaza is edging close to the 20,000 mark. Gaza health authorities say 27 people were killed in a strike on an apartment building in Rafah in the south, while 13 died in the northern Jabalia refugee camp, where around 75 were wounded. More aid is getting into Gaza since the opening of the Kerem Shalom crossing from Israel this week. Up to 200 trucks are now arriving every day, still below the 500 daily flow before October 7th. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
The White House said the multinational coalition protecting shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden is crucial to ensuring the health of global trade. On Tuesday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin launched Operation Prosperity Guardian, joining forces with the UK, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain to provide maritime security to commercial vessels in that area. The Houthis, in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, said they would intercept any vessel heading towards Israel or stopping there. Some vessels are now rerouting around Africa instead of using the Suez Canal as shipping rates rise sharply. White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said the Red Sea is a conduit for up to 15% of all global trade. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron, speaking in Rome, said the coalition is sending a strong message to the Houthis.
All that underscores the dependence that these economies have around the world on the strategic trade. Bottom line is, these attacks have to stop. They need to stop. They're unacceptable. The United States, our allies and our partners, will do what we have to do to counter these threats and to protect these ships.
For ourselves, we'll be lending some of our ships to that task. And I think it's very important that there's a very clear message to the Houthis in Yemen who've been launching all these attacks that, these attacks will not be tolerated.
Donald Trump cannot appear on the presidential election ballot in Colorado next year, the Supreme Court of that state has ruled. It is because of his role in the riots on the Capitol by his supporters in 2021. Colorado's historic judgment is likely to find its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. David Garrett reports.
This was the proposal put before the Colorado Supreme Court.
And we are here because Trump claims, after all that, he has the right to be president again. But our Constitution, our shared charter of our nation, says he cannot do so.
Rioters violently stormed Capitol Hill in January 2021, trying to keep Trump in power after Joe Biden had won the election. Colorado Supreme Court had to decide whether to disqualify Trump from next year's election on the basis of a line in the Constitution which bars anyone from public office who engages in insurrection.
Was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
Legal challenges in other states have failed. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that Trump is not an eligible candidate based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Trump called it anti-democratic and will appeal. The ruling is therefore on hold. The justices wrote, "We did not reach these conclusions lightly. We are mindful of the magnitude."
It wasn't surprising in that we think the law and the evidence points in this direction. It was reassuring that people on the court recognized the right decision and had the courage to follow the law and the facts where they led. And so I'm very proud to be a Coloradan and an American today.
Trump becomes the first presidential candidate to be ineligible under the constitutional provision. At a rally in Iowa, he vowed to fight on, saying the courts are biased.
Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat. They're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls.
Trump supporters did not seem bothered and stand by their man.
Donald Trump, when he was in, no wars, China was in check, and Iraq was soldiers there, and Iran, he had them under control, simple as that.
He really wants to do what's best for America, and that's what everybody wants, really, when you come down to it.
The stage is set at the U.S. Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, including 3 justices appointed by Trump. The highest court in the land has never ruled on this amendment to the Constitution, which was put in place after the Civil War in the 1800s. Donald Trump has never been found guilty of insurrection. Even some liberals say it should be up to the voters, not the courts, to decide if Trump is a danger to America. David Garrett, TVB News.
Still ahead, a medical specialist says COVID vaccines targeting the XBB variant can also help people resist the new JN1 strain. The Hong Kong Tourism Board offering dining vouchers worth $100 each to local residents. And the number of flight arrivals and departures at Hong Kong International Airport rises to 80% of pre-pandemic levels. Welcome back. A number of local infectious disease specialists noted certain types of COVID vaccines are currently available, and especially those targeting the XBB variant could help residents resist the JN1 strain. Several health authorities have urged those in high-risk groups to get the jab as soon as possible. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The JN.1 coronavirus strain has seen significant growth abroad, and many are concerned whether the strain has already become mainstream in Hong Kong. According to latest figures from the Center for Health Protection, as of 2 weeks ago, lab results indicated there were 87 positive COVID cases during that week, but none of them involved the mutant strain. This, as Dr. Joseph Zhang from the Hong Kong Medical Association's Advisory Committee on Communicable Diseases stressed the difficulty of determining whether a patient has the mutant strain if they only use the rapid antigen tests. Dr. Zhang noted the JN.1 strain's transmissibility is ever increasing, but added the same rise is yet to be observed for the rate of severe cases. Given the genome sequencing of the JN.1 strain cases are related to the Omicron variant, he emphasized vaccines that are currently available could help prevent severe cases and fatalities. Dr. Zhang suggested those who got the jab more than 6 months ago, especially elderly residents and those suffering from chronic health issues, should get the third-generation XBB vaccine. Those who are eligible for the jab include care home residents as well as people aged 65 or above. They can register and get the jab for free at designated private clinics, clinics under the Hospital Authority and Department of Health. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Tourism Board is offering 100,000 dining vouchers worth $100 each to residents. It is the first phase of a scheme to hand out 200,000 vouchers in a bid to boost the nighttime economy. Residents must pick one among 630 restaurants and bars to make use of their vouchers. They must then dine at the selected location within 30 days after 6 p.m. and spend more than $100. The second phase of the voucher scheme will be rolled out on the 10th of next month. The airport authority said the number of flight arrivals and departures at Hong Kong International Airport has risen to 80% of pre-pandemic levels. The airport body predicted more than 1,000 flights will fly in and out of the city daily during the Christmas and Chinese New Year holidays. Currently, an average of 960 flights arrive and depart from the city's airport each day. The passenger capacity has also increased to around 75% of pre-pandemic levels. The airport authority predicts around 160,000 people will pass through the airport each day during the upcoming holidays. Most flights are expected to be between the SAR and Taipei, with around 70 flights a day. Police will implement crowd safety management measures and special traffic arrangements in Kowloon and Hong Kong Island on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Roads such as Lang Kwai Fong and Wing Hua Lane will be closed to vehicles between 2 p.m. on December 24 and 5 a.m. the next day. Roads in Tsim Sha Tsui district, including eastbound and westbound Salisbury Road, between Science Museum Road and Kowloon Park Drive, will be closed starting from 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Meanwhile, MTR said enhanced overnight train services will operate during the festive season. And that is the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.